Let's talk about something that trips a lot of people up when they read the Bible: God's character. I mean, on one hand, you hear about a God of infinite love, right? But on the other, a God of vengeance. So, how can both of those things be true at the same time?
You've probably heard this before. It's a super common idea. People say the God of the Old Testament is this wrathful, angry figure, and then suddenly in the New Testament, with Jesus, he's all about love and forgiveness. But, is the picture really that black and white? This is the classic setup we're all used to. Vengeance over here, love over there. It almost feels like we're talking about two completely different gods. So in this explainer, we're going to kind of tear down that assumption and look at this whole thing in a completely different way. All right, so to get started, we're literally just going to flip the script. We're going to challenge this whole premise by digging up some evidence that, well, it doesn't really fit into those neat little boxes. So you think the Old Testament is only about vengeance? Okay, well, check this out. Right after Adam and Eve sin, what does God do? He shows mercy. He clothes them. Or how about Noah? He makes this incredible promise, a covenant, to never flood the entire earth again. He even describes himself to Moses as merciful and gracious. This does not sound like a God who is only about vengeance.
Now let's flip it around. Let's look at the New Testament, the book that's supposed to be all about love. We see Jesus, filled with righteous anger, literally flipping over tables in the temple. He says flat out, "I came not to send peace but a sword." And then you've got the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who are struck dead just for lying. The Apostle Paul sums it up perfectly later when he says we should see both the goodness and the severity of God. So yeah, that simple old versus new divide. It's just not holding up.
Okay, so if it's not about Old Testament versus New Testament, then what is it about? Well, here's the key. Maybe it's not when God is speaking, but who he is speaking to. And trust me, that shift in perspective, it changes everything.
This brings us to a whole new framework, one that suggests God speaks to humanity in three very different ways. And how he communicates, well, it changes dramatically depending on which of these three groups he's talking to. So here they are. First, you've got the faithful. These are the people who are actively trying to follow God. Simple enough. Second, you have the enemies, those who consciously and knowingly fight against him. And third, and this might be the biggest group of all, you have the indifferent. These are good, decent people who are just not really committed one way or the other.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. To the faithful, God's message is all about encouragement, love, and promises. Makes sense. But to his enemies, that's when you hear the warnings of vengeance and destruction. And what about the indifferent? Well, for them, he gives these stern warnings, basically trying to get them to wake up and make a choice. You see, the tone completely shifts based on the audience, not on the year it was written.
Now, this whole idea actually points to an even deeper theological concept, a principle that helps make sense of all of this balance. It's called the principle of contraries. This quote from the 19th century religious leader Joseph Smith just nails it. In proving contraries, the truth of God is manifest. The idea here is that you can't really grasp one side of a divine truth without also understanding its opposite. The full picture only shows up when you see the contrast. I mean, think about it in simple terms, right? You can't fully appreciate light if you've never known darkness. You can't really get what joy is without having felt sorrow. Well, this principle suggests that the big divine attributes work the exact same way. The complete truth is found somewhere in the middle, in the balance between two opposing forces.
And the ultimate example of this has to be justice and mercy. Justice says there have to be consequences for our actions, but mercy offers forgiveness when we repent. They seem like total opposites, but according to this principle, they don't cancel each other out. No way! Instead, together they reveal the full, balanced character of God, someone who is both perfectly just and perfectly merciful.
So, where does this all leave us when we go back to that original question? Well, it means we can finally move past this myth of an angry Old Testament God versus a loving New Testament God. At the end of the day, God's character is consistent through the whole Bible. It's not a contradiction, it's just balanced. It's complete. What changes is his tone, and that tone is perfectly tailored to his audience, whether they're faithful or hostile or just indifferent. And it's all built on that perfect, eternal balance between justice and mercy. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. If we stop seeing justice and mercy as these competing forces, and instead start seeing them as two sides of the same coin, two essential parts of one divine whole, How does that change our perspective on fairness, on forgiveness, and on the very nature of God himself?